Meetings can take up a lot of our time. So in this video, I want to give you 14 ways to reduce wasted time in meetings. My first 7 tips are all going to be about making better use of the time you spend when you're in the meeting. Tip number 1. Prepare in advance, and in particular, know what you're after. Know what the outcome is that you want from the meeting. Make sure that you read any materials. Make sure you take time to think about controversial issues or things that you care about. If you're presenting any component of it, think through your presentation, go through it, rehearse it, practice it. Make sure that you're ready to deliver with confidence and with precision. Tip number 2 is to use the meeting to enhance one or more relationships. Make sure that when you're at the meeting, you speak with people before the meeting and, if possible, after the meeting as well, before you move on. Take the opportunity to get to know some people better, to find out a little bit more about what makes them tick, what they care about, and what they're good at. And tip number 3 is to use the meeting to enhance your reputation. Having prepared well, remember that you're on show throughout the meeting. So therefore, handle yourself professionally and deliver comments with acumen. Stick to what you know about and contribute only where you can add real value. Tip number 4 is to make good notes so that you can follow up quickly. If possible, do the actions that you've been given at the meeting immediately after the meeting, or at least put them into play. Tip number 5 develops that. If any of your follow-up involves other people who are attending the meeting, try to do it straight away. Get them together. Perhaps go and get a coffee and start doing the work. Not only will that help with the follow-up, but you can also use it to enhance the relationships you have with those people and to build your reputation as someone who gets things done. Tip number 6 is to look for opportunities, if there are breaks in the meeting, to do side business during those breaks. If you've got no side business you need to do, obviously building relationships is your priority. But if there are people you need to speak about, if there are things you need to do that are relevant to the meeting, then don't waste the breaks by simply having a coffee and chatting about things that don't matter. And tip number 7, become the guardian of everybody's valuable time. If you spot that people are repeating themselves and going over the same thing again, or are getting distracted by a conversation or a discussion that isn't relevant to what the meeting should be doing, then alert the chair. Raise it in a respectful manner and suggest that we park the topic and move on. That way, not only will you guard your time and other people's time, but people will see you as someone who pays attention and has the courage to speak out and the determination to use the meeting time well. Having looked at 7 tips to get better results from your attendance at the meeting, let's look at another 7 tips that will allow you to further reduce the amount of time you waste in meetings. And the first 4 of those are all around the theme of attending fewer meetings. If you attend fewer meetings, you will waste less time in meetings. Tip number 8 is to review all of the regular meetings you're invited to and attend fewer of them and decline or delegate more of them to other people. Oftentimes, regular meetings serve very little residual purpose. They happen as a ritual. You often go along to them, you say hello to the same people, there are no relationships to be built, no relationships to get really much stronger, and the meeting doesn't transact anything really valuable. Oftentimes, scanning the minutes to that meeting or the notes that come out afterwards, or sending a colleague that you've delegated and getting a short briefing from them will serve just as much purpose, deliver just as much value, and take far less time. So tip number 9 is to reinforce the importance of having the option to send a junior colleague to represent you or your department or team. Tip 10 is to evaluate each meeting that you're invited to on its own merits. When you get invited to a new meeting, take a look at the agenda, look at who's participating, and decide whether you can either A, contribute something of real value to the meeting, or B, gain something of real value from the meeting. And if you can't, a respectful call to the chair, the person that invited you, and decline the meeting. And tip number 11, if there's only a small part of the agenda that really affects you, look to see if you can deal with it outside of the meeting, so that by the time the meeting happens, that item is covered off and you can report to the meeting with a short note to the chair, and you don't need to attend. My final 3 tips are a compromise. It's not about not attending the meeting, it's about not attending all of the meeting and therefore attending only part of the meeting. But if you are going to attend only part of the meeting, do let the chair know in advance so that they are not surprised by your not being there at the beginning, or they're not surprised when you excuse yourself partway through the meeting at a suitable point. So, tip number 12 is to examine the agenda and arrive at the right time. If you know that the first half of the meeting is taken up by things that don't concern you, things that you can't contribute to, then get a sense from the chair about the timings, arrive in good time for the part that does concern you, but you can sit out the earlier part of the meeting and get on with some other more valuable work instead. Tip number 13. If you have a particularly good relationship with the chair, maybe you can arrange for someone to give you a call as the time approaches for your contribution. Or, better yet, if you can, ask the chair to arrange for your item to come up first or immediately after a break, so it makes it much easier to plan your attendance. And finally, tip number 14. Be prepared to leave to excuse yourself courteously and with respect after your relevant items are all done. Let the people who remain discuss things that are of no concern to you and get back to your job and doing other things that are more important. So, meetings are hugely valuable when done well, but they can be a huge drain on your time, and when done poorly can waste a lot of your time. Here are 14 tips for making better use of meeting time and therefore avoiding waste. Please give us a thumbs up if you like this video. There's loads more great management courses content to come, so please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of it. I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.